Weyland Yutani, the company in the shadows of the Alien franchise, is one of pop culture's most evil corporations. It has also been referenced in movies and TV for the last 40 years. We're breaking down every reference from Death Race to Doctor Who and Kristen Stewart's Underwater, so let's dive into it. Just 2 years after Alien's 1979 release came Outland. This 1981 film, starring Sean Connery, can easily be confused for being in the same universe as Alien. Both films share the same blue-collar space industrial tone and evil megacorp themes. The company in Outland is called Con Amalgamated. To confuse matters further, the Ladd Company, run by famed producer Alan Ladd, was involved in both Ridley Scott's Alien and Outland. And both movies were scored by the legendary Jerry Goldsmith. As a result, fans often treat Outland as a spiritual cousin to Alien. But that's headcanon, not canon. No Weyland Yutani name or logo appears anywhere in the film, so this is actually a near miss and not an official reference. Red Dwarf. Psirens is an episode from BBC's cult classic sci-fi comedy series Red Dwarf. Made in 1993, the episode opens with a tour through a vast graveyard of derelict spacecraft. Tucked into that drifting junk field is a Sly reference. A shuttle that matches the Alien franchise's Narcissus, Ripley's lifeboat in the first movie, quietly gliding past among the wrecks. Red Dwarf never says Weyland Yutani, and there's no on-screen text or dialogue to call it out. The Narcissus is clear, though. The compact wedge front profile, the single dorsal fin rising from the spine, and the paneled, almost ribbed hull plating that gives it a utilitarian, built-to-last feel. For fans of both Alien and Red Dwarf, this winking confirmation proved that Red Dwarf's art department had their space movie lore credentials. For others, it probably went unnoticed. Death Machine. Written and directed by Stephen Norrington and starring Brad Dourif, Death Machine is a British science fiction horror movie from 1994. Director Norrington had worked as a special effects artist for James Cameron's Aliens, so there is a clear connection already to the franchise. You will see this a few times in this list, people who worked on the original movies paying homage to them via Weyland Yutani. Death Machine is set inside its own morally bankrupt tech giant called Chonk Industries. The Weyland Yutani reference arrives as a pointed in-joke rather than a subtle logo on a wall. Two eco-activists caught up in Chank's mess are literally named Weyland and Yutani. The reference is of its era. 90s genre films loved threading intertextual nods through character lists and computer readouts. Next up, we have a movie that was ahead of its time as a comic book adaptation. Spawn. Spawn is a 1997 comic book action horror film, steeped in late 90s CGI bravado and industrial goth energy. The story follows elite operative Al Simmons, murdered and reborn as a hell-forged anti-hero, stalking corporate conspirators and supernatural foes through a slick, neon-tinged world. Amid the film's early airport sequence, there's a fleeting yet unmistakable nod to Alien film's corporate boogeyman. A graphical screen flashes the text, Weyland Yutani Flight 426. It lasts only a heartbeat, but it's doing two things at once, dropping the company name and pairing it with the franchise's most loaded number, 426, the tag forever linked to LV 426 and Hadley's Hope. The reference appears as a single line within the on-screen HUD typography, while the camera tracks the tarmac, scanning aircraft and data strings. The font style is utilitarian, white against a darker UI scaffold, designed to read as military-grade avionics rather than a decorative Easter egg. Still, if you think eagle-eyed fans are going to miss even the subtlest Alien reference, think again. Moving on to the Whedonverse, Firefly. Joss Whedon's 2002 sci-fi western is set in a worn, blue-collar future full of smugglers, soldiers, and frontier worlds. Pilot episode Serenity opens with the Battle of Serenity Valley, a chaotic flashback that establishes Malcolm Reynolds as a former independent sergeant manning an anti-aircraft emplacement. Buried inside the targeting display of that AA gun is a sly, frame-quick nod to Alien. The Weyland Yutani winged W crest appears as part of the weapon's on-screen interface. The targeting screen also reveals the name of the weapon to be UA-571D Ground Sentry, an obvious reference to the UA-571C automated sentry guns used in the extended special edition of Aliens. Context deepens the reference here. Joss Whedon wrote Alien Resurrection in 1997, so Firefly sneaking in the company's crest is both an inside joke and a bridge between two corners of sci-fi. The grungy, corporate-run cosmos of the Alien films and the scrappy, lived-in verse of Firefly. Importantly, the show isn't declaring a shared canon. It's tipping its hat to the Alien franchise. Then there's Whedon's beloved Buffy the Vampire spin-off, Angel. Harm's Way is a 2004 episode from the WB's hit supernatural drama set in Los Angeles. The relevant moment takes place as the opening of Season 5, Episode 9, after Angel and his team have taken over the firm, and the episode opens with a cheery in-house orientation video playing in the lobby, slick HR messaging that sells the company as a beacon of professionalism. Inside that sanitized corporate patter sits one of the clearest Weyland Yutani nods in pop culture outside the Alien films. The narrator folds Weyland Yutani right into Wolfram and Hart's prestigious client list, spoken plainly, no wink, no cutaway, as if it's just another Fortune 500 account on the books. This reframes the Alien megacorp's reputation through a modern LA lens. If any firm would represent a client that prioritizes profits over human life, it's Wolfram and Hart. Again, the meta layer deepens the joke. This is another Joss Whedon-helmed universe acknowledging the corporation from the franchise he helped to shape as a screenwriter on Alien Resurrection. iRobot. This 2004 sci-fi thriller, starring Will Smith, is set in a near-future Chicago where domestic robots are ubiquitous, and one homicide detective, Smith's Del Spooner, doesn't trust them. The film flashes back to the car-in-the-river accident that shaped Spooner's bias. A rescue unit smashes through glass and, by cold math, saves him over a young girl. In that sequence lies a neat, blink-and-you-miss-it crossover with the Alien universe. As the rescue robot leans into the submerged car and hauls Spooner clear, its chest plating carries a small Weyland Yutani insignia, just a discreet manufacturer's badge on a white composite shell, visible only for a beat. What makes this cameo satisfying is how plausibly it's planted. There's no dialogue calling it out, no cheeky insert shot. The implication is the fun. If the company exists in this future, it isn't just shipping ore and funding expeditions. It's inside the safety equipment, the firmware, the everyday machines that decide who lives and who dies. The Rig. The Rig is a 2010 indie sea monster movie set on a remote offshore platform as a storm cuts the crew off from the mainland. It's lean, claustrophobic, and very much in the tradition of blue-collar sci-fi horror, hard hats, steel grates, humming generators, where a small team is left to fend for itself while something ugly moves through the dark. The film never says Weyland Yutani, but it plants a clear homage in plain sight. The facility is branded Weyland Drilling Corp. That's not a throwaway background gag, it's the company identity of the entire setting. The reference appears stenciled on bulkhead doors and safety placards, printed on equipment cases and clipboards, and shows up as simple block lettering on workwear, hard-shell rain jackets, coveralls, and more. What makes this wink effective is how it aligns with the theme. In Alien, the company sends crews into danger under the soothing banner of building better worlds. Here, the Weyland name presides over a rig where a skeleton crew keeps production going as weather, and then something worse closes in. V. We Can't Win is an episode from ABC's 2009 reboot of the classic Alien Invasion series V. Aired in 2010, the show reframes First Contact as a public relations exercise. Immaculate visitors arrive with promises of free energy and medical breakthroughs, while governments and corporations jostle for position. In this episode, that tension coalesces around a high-level summit. Slick suits, UN-style seating, microphones poised, placards printed in tidy text. And it's here that we see one of the most unambiguous Weyland Yutani nods to the company outside the main franchise. Among the nameplates around the conference table sits one that reads, Weyland Yutani Corporation. At first, it registers as just another stakeholder at the table. In closer coverage, the wording is legible enough that any fan's stomach drops. In Alien, Weyland Yutani is the off-screen force pushing crews into harm with euphemisms about building better worlds. V takes that idea and literalizes it. When aliens dangle disruptive tech, the first to sit with them are states and corporations, and the company has a chair. Death Race 2, Death Race 3, Inferno, and Death Race Beyond Anarchy. These Death Race films are direct-to-video action prequels in the rebooted franchise. The world is one of televised cruelty, and the films make the corporate overlord part of the texture of every scene, Weyland Corporation. It's not a throwaway Easter egg. The name is spoken in dialogue, splashed across newscasts, and embedded in the prison's branding. Executive R.H. Weyland presides over this ecosystem of ratings, contracts, and inmates as commodities, turning incarceration into entertainment. Death Race 3, Inferno, moves the rebooted franchise from Terminal Island Prison to the desert arenas of South Africa, where the pay-per-view sport is about to go global. Weyland Corporation still owns the prison infrastructure and the broadcast machine. This time, the story pivots on a hostile takeover, media tycoon Niles York muscling in to seize control, which puts Weyland's name, assets, and legacy squarely in the crosshairs. Death Race Beyond Anarchy expands the world out into a lawless prison city where the underground death race has metastasized into a full-blown culture. The film keeps the corporate backbone, which was established in the previous entries, but updates the branding. The world is now under the thumb of Weyland International. In all three films, the references are woven into narrative and design, rather than hidden in a corner. When characters argue policy or money, they say Weyland out loud, as if invoking a behemoth everyone already knows. When the film cuts to media coverage, lower thirds and bumpers carry the corporate signature that underwrites the spectacle. Around the facility, the name appears on signage that marks property and authority, on the administrative paperwork that moves bodies from cell block to arena, on the platforms and barriers that turn a yard into a racetrack. It's the Weyland half of the famous brand, deployed straight-faced, no wings, no Yutani, but carrying all the connotations. Optimization over mercy, profit over lives, the boardroom as the true engine of the plot. The Grey. The Grey is a 2012 survival thriller starring Liam Neeson. It tells the story of a crew of Alaskan oil field workers whose plane crashes in the snowbound wilderness, forcing a handful of survivors to trek out while wolves close in. It's stripped down and elemental. Wind howls, breath steams, yet the movie still slips in a subtle wink for Alien. One of the survivors, Hendrik, spends much of the film wearing a black cap and a heavy parka stamped with a stark WY mark rendered in that clean, industrial block letter style we instinctively associate with a certain interstellar employer. The reference works because it's lived in, not showcased. After the crash, as the men inventory supplies in the fuselage's wrecked shell, the hat's WI sits in frame like real-world branding, unremarkable to the characters, instantly suggestive to us. On the long trudge over ice and through spindrift, the parka's small badge keeps resurfacing in medium shots and profile angles, a steady drumbeat that turns wardrobe into world-building. It implies a backstory. These are blue-collar contractors stamped by a faceless conglomerate that values output over people. Doctor Who, Power of the Daleks. The Power of the Daleks is a BBC animated reconstruction released in 2016, recreating a lost 1966 serial that introduced Patrick Troughton's Second Doctor. The new version rebuilds sets and shots from audio recordings and production stills, then quietly salts in a few modern Easter eggs. One of the most playful is a nod to Alien's corporate boogeyman, the Weyland Yutani emblem tucked into the governor's office on the human colony of Vulcan. The reference isn't spoken, it's a compact badge, styled like the familiar winged W, placed on a communications unit in the office environment. Power of the Daleks is all about authority resting on machinery, labs, monitors, intercoms, so embedding the company mark into a piece of official hardware lets the joke live at the same bureaucratic level as the story itself. Because this is an animated reconstruction, the cameo is also a time-bending wink. The original 1966 broadcast couldn't have contained a logo from a franchise that didn't exist yet. The 2016 team, however, is free to tip the hat. Underwater. Underwater is a big-budget sci-fi horror feature set on a deep-sea drilling installation 7 miles down, where a skeleton crew tries to survive after a catastrophic blowout. It's claustrophobic, industrial, and relentlessly practical. Hard suits, bulkhead doors, emergency lighting, exactly the environment where a corporate logo can say as much as a line of dialogue. In the film's middle stretch, after a collapse injures the station chief, Captain Lucian, he appears with his forearm immobilized in a sling that threads over a shoulder harness. On that harness sits a small Weyland Corp emblem, crisp block lettering with the familiar bar wing motif from the later era branding stitched or heat-sealed into the strap. The placement is deliberate. You don't see it in a hero close-up. You see it where real equipment would carry a maker's mark. Only when you pause does the implication surface. This mission-critical gear, and by extension the whole operation miles below the surface, exists under the umbrella of the same corporate mindset that builds better worlds in space. In a film about pressure, physical, psychological, economic, the logo expands the world without a speech. It suggests procurement chains, licensing, a parent company supplying standardized components to the riskiest workplaces imaginable. And that brings us to the end of this video breaking down how other TV series and movies have paid homage to Weyland Yutani over the past 30 years. If you want to learn more about Weyland Yutani, specifically how it's been portrayed in the Alien universe to date, make sure to check out our channel or click the link here. And keep checking back as we'll be covering the company's role in Alien vs. Predator any day now.